And then the best part of this job is introducing the next panel. Chris Lee, please be ready to come on with your panel. We've known Christopher for quite some time. He's been a great supporter for Link2. He's a partner at FAA Investments that pays attention to early stage companies, real estate investments, and hedge funds. What's amazing about Chris, and every time he brings a panel on, is that he elevates the conversation. I mean, we had him on yesterday with a bunch of researchers and academics talking about the macro levels of the economy and what's happening in the world on a macro level. And yet again, we have both Matthias and Damien, who are going to be speaking more on their level of, on a macro, holistic, global level of what's going on in this environment of ours. Chris, thank you so much for being here today, and I'll let you introduce a little bit more about FAA and your panel. Thank you, and I'll pop in. When you see me pop in, it'll be time.
I know what it means.
Or close
Thank
to
you. Again, thanks, Kareem, for that brief introduction. So it is good to be back here again with the Link2 team as an investor and also a strategic advisor. And let me introduce my panel to you very quickly. So, you know, you would all be happy to know that Damien is also a native Australian. So Damien, good to see you here again. So he is currently the global head for research new business initiative, right, at UBS, the gigantic Swiss institution where he has been for the past 18 years. And zooming in from Hong Kong, Damien, I know you've lived in Hong Kong for the past 10 years. And with UBS, you've also been around the world, stationed in London and also in Japan. And just very briefly to share with the audience, you were also the European aviation, I think, a research team head for ABN AMRO. And prior to that, you were with Alex Brown, BT Alex Brown, which is a very familiar name to the audience here because of the Silicon Valley, you know, track record that they have in bringing lots of companies to IPO in the 80s and 90s and up to like 2000. Damien is also a graduate of the AMP program at Harvard Business School. And so it's so good to be working with you again, right, on this panel. So welcome, Damien. And second on our panel is also my good friend and ex-colleague at the UBS, Matt Richter. So he's now got a new career, financial imagineer. It's a very rich topic that we want to get into when we talk about research and also wealth management. Thank you again, Matt, for zooming in from Switzerland. I know it's late in the evening there, so really appreciate that. Normally, Matt is actually out of Singapore, so he has two locations. From Singapore, he is the head of wealth management with the JCube Capital. And then from Switzerland, he is the founder of MomentumDB.pro that he will share with us a little bit more. And what I'm really excited about is really the blog that you do. I mean, you're the editor of DDI, data-driven investor, right? So later on, you should share with us a little bit more about. I know independent, you have more than 50,000 subscribers on your email list, and easily you have more than 1 million readers on a monthly basis, right? So we definitely want to hear more about that. And you know, prior to your entrepreneurial and also financial imagineer career, you were at UBS also for 11 years, serving very wealthy clients, family offices, you know, in Taiwan, Singapore, and also other locations. And I should also mention that you speak 5 languages. You know, being in Switzerland, you speak 3 already, and plus you are fluent in Mandarin Chinese, and obviously you speak English, and you have a master's degree from University of St. Gallen, which is the Harvard equivalent in Switzerland. So welcome again, my 2 ex-colleagues and good friend. So perhaps I can just ask you both to give a bit of an update about your current business and career, and maybe starting with Damien first, and give us a little bit of an update first.
Sure, Chris, thank you very much for that very kind introduction. I think by bringing up Alex Brown, you're just dating us all by taking us all back to the 80s. You're making me feel old, but I appreciate the introduction. As Chris mentioned, I've been at UBS for the last 18 years. I've been in the investment research field now coming up 30 years. As Chris mentioned, I covered for my sins the transport sector and specifically the aviation sector for almost 20. But for most of the past decade, I've been in research management for UBS, more focused on the Asia Pacific region, but part of the global research management team. And it's been a fascinating place to be, seeing the rise of China, the liberalization of Chinese financial services, and then the fascinating interplay of technological change and regulatory change, which creates challenges for an organization like UBS, but also a plethora of opportunities for us and, most importantly, our clients. So my role now, so for most of the last 10 years, I was head of research for the region. We have one of the largest commitments to investment research in the region. We've got about 250 people across 13 countries in Asia. Over the course of this year, it's been an interesting year to do this. I've transitioned into a new business initiatives role, which is about launching new products, developing new partnerships, and taking our content, which I think in many ways we can consider market leading content, into new client segments as well. And I heard the sort of a bit of the previous discussion where Joe was talking about the fourth industrial revolution and how that is changing the landscape across so many industries, and technology at the forefront of that. But it's a big issue for us, right? It's a big issue for research providers. It's a big issue for investors. It's a big issue for our clients, and that means that we need to change. We need to change the way that we produce research, the way we distribute research, and I think it's a really fascinating intersection here where you've got a plethora and a growing availability of data, but that data needs to be contextualized. That data needs to be made relevant in the context of an individual client's investment decision, and that's the big challenge that we face as a research provider. And it's been a fascinating journey over the course of the last decade or so, particularly over the course of the last 5 years with the way that technology has changed. We've done a couple of key things which I think have helped our analysts and our clients address this changing landscape. We launched UBS Evidence Lab in 2015. Evidence Lab is the largest provider of alternative data on the sell side. We have a very large dedicated team collecting, cleansing, and making relevant data for investors, and it's very much embedded in our research product, and part of the dialogue we're having with our clients day in, day out. Right. And then the more recent thing we launched was China 360, which is a thematic research proposition which links the key themes that are changing China, particularly technology, with expert and corporate access. So those are the things that we're focused on.
Yeah, we'd like to hear more later on as well. I mean, perhaps Matt, you can give us a very brief just update on Financial Imagineer, and then we'll get into the formal Q&A.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chris, for your kind introduction as well. So as you've mentioned, I used to be at UBS before, serving the wealthy people in Asia. Financial Imagineer started actually towards the end of my career in UBS. I was suddenly hooked into the financial bloggers that talk about financial independence and so on. And all of a sudden, I thought I could actually spread my knowledge and what I've learned serving the wealthy people, our clients at UBS before, with anyone that is interested to up their life, make more sense of their life, and probably go towards financial freedom and enrich themselves in unlock more opportunities in life. So the Financial Imagineer is a personal finance blog that inspire people to make more of their lives. So it's like what Bill before mentioned, accessibility, spreading financial literacy, and helping others to improve their lives. So that's maybe from that side. And the other ventures, maybe I will touch on later.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, the topic today is really about research and wealth management. So on the research side, Damien, I think, you know, we have talked about this, and also as the global head, right, for new business initiative in terms of technological changes and also regulatory changes. Can you comment a little bit more on which one is driving, you know, your initiatives more at this point, and why?
Chris, I think it's a great question. I think if you look at most of what's been discussed around the evolution of the research industry and the way that research is produced and marketed, it will focus on the regulatory challenges that that we've all faced over the course of the last, particularly over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, with the introduction of MiFID II in Europe, which really sort of fundamentally changed the business model and for any investors based out of Europe. But of course, that did lead to significant changes for global investors, because everyone in some way, when you're a global investor, touch Europe. So there has been significant focus on the regulatory regime, and that's that makes sense. And obviously, we need to ensure that investors are protected and that the system is efficient. But I actually think that the more profound changes to the business model are a function of technological change, and some of the topics that Joe touched on with the fourth industrial revolution. I like shocking the junior people on my team by telling them that I started doing research before the World Wide Web was but of course, you know, the technology continues to change, and you know, provides significant opportunities for investors, and we need to make sure we're leveraging it, whether that's web scraping, whether that's geospatial information, whether app analytics, you know, all these types, to make sure that they're part of any, you know, sophisticated investment process.
Right. So expanding on your technological change, I think, argument, and you know, I like to get to Matt also, right? That Matt, you and I talk a lot about, you know, you helping people and also using money as a tool. And so in terms of the technological sort of like changes that we're seeing in the fourth industrial revolution, so how would you advise the wealthy investors and the family offices to position perhaps digital asset, right, as a bigger part, you know, of their portfolio? So our audience will be very keen to hear that.
I think for that part, we have Data Driven Investor. My business partner and friend Justin started DDI. The blog you mentioned before, we have a tremendous reach with more than 1 million clicks per month, 50,000 email subscribers, and 200 to 300 independent contributors exactly talking about topics like you just asked. And I think there we also want to kind of democratize the access of knowledge and insights, how to navigate that for as and how to go into digital assets. The good thing is digital assets could be anything. It could be shares, it could be real estate, it could be ownership of other things. It's just the way how you wrap it, right? And of course, digital assets, a lot of people think first about blockchain, maybe Bitcoin and so on. My personal belief is that maybe at the moment we are not sure yet which form will win at the end. So we are looking at who will be profiting from that transfer, right? And maybe how Damien also covers it. there will be so much data, so that the next revolution will actually unlock tremendous opportunities. So we try to figure out how to make sense of that data that becomes available. And maybe instead of just choosing one or two things to actually put money into that, we try to make sense and see how to profit from these changes. So with DDI being the research arm of JCube, which is the family office setup, we try to make sense of these changes. And there's a wealth of opportunities. From cryptocurrencies, that side, I mean, the big question is which one will survive? Bitcoin, of course, you have the blockchain that is super secure. But at the other side, if you go to IMF, the International Monetary Fund, or you go to the BIS, the Bank for the BIS in Basel, you see that on their blogs, they actually have downloadable manuals how to start your own digital currency for central banks. So if you're a central bank from whatever country, you go to that website, you download it, you get a manual there, which lines out how to do it yourself. So I think there will be a lot of updates from the currency space. And maybe one of the first things I advise clients is be aligned with central banks. So you have to understand what they maybe want to go about. I also don't know what will happen. Nobody knows. But if you think they have printed so much fiat currencies, and you can actually prepare yourself, maybe have a little bit debt against your house, have real assets, and then when digital assets become more and more, there's also a lot of options you can actually put your money down. In Switzerland, we have SEBA Bank, which is very big. There's a lot of things getting accessible for clients more and more.
So on the alignment with the central bank topic, right? I mean, this is I think a great segue into the blockchain and the whole, I think, cooperation with countries. So Damien, I think, at the macro level, it will also be good if you just comment not specifically on the cryptocurrency, but more generally on the blockchain topic, right, as part of your new global research initiative, right? And if I may also ask you to also bring in the China angle into it, because you obviously done a lot in terms of working with the government in China and also in discussing with them about different research initiatives that would benefit individuals as well as institutional investors.
Sure, Chris. Like I'm not going to claim to be an expert on blockchain or cryptocurrencies or any of the like, but I'll make a couple of points. And firstly, I suppose the way I look at it is I definitively separate cryptocurrencies from blockchain, right? And I think the debate on cryptocurrencies, I think, will rage for some time, and we'll just have to see how the purpose and the application of cryptocurrencies evolves. I think that there's still a debate amongst the clients that I talk to about that purpose and about how it fits into an investment portfolio and how it fits into a financial system. But I think where it's much easier to get excited and much clearer that it's going to be a sort of foundational change is blockchain, right? So the decentralized ledgers have all sorts of potential applications, whether that be from a custodial perspective, from a research perspective, or I suppose disrupting industries, which is creating opportunities for investors as well. So. I think it is very easy to get excited about how blockchain, as a sort of integral part of that fourth industrial revolution, could materially change a number of industries and therefore create a lot of opportunities, also risks. As a research guy, I'll always have to say that there's two sides to any story. So look, I do think it's exciting, and we've done quite a bit of work on trying to I suppose understand the various applications of blockchain, and I think there's a lot more work to be done and a lot of opportunity. On China, I think look, I've been in Asia for the last 15 years, actually. I got here in 2005. If you include Australia as part of Asia, which I like to do, actually, I've been here most of my life.
Audience.
But look, I think the big opportunity in China is a function of the liberalization of the financial services industry there, right? So I like to think about it in this context, right? If you look at the A-share market, right? So the onshore market, which is roughly a $9 trillion market cap market. That's roughly 3% foreign owned today, right? So it's moved since the launch of Shenzhen and Shanghai Connect about 3 or 4 years ago. It's gone from sort of 1.5% to 3%. Most markets in Asia are somewhere between 25 and 40% foreign owned, right? That's just if you look at the gamut from Australia to Indonesia to South Korea, it's somewhere between 25 and 40% foreign owned. So as the Chinese market continues to liberalize, as the index providers increase the weight of the Chinese stock market in things like the MSCI, Asia Pacific, and the FTSE indices, most investors around the world are going to have little choice but to better understand the opportunities and the risks in China, right? And given it's the second largest economy in the world, and most likely going to be one of the fastest growing economies in the world, that makes a lot of sense, right? It's a bit of a stretch going to, it's impossible to ignore, but I think it's a fair statement that you really can't ignore China in the context of an investment portfolio over the course of the next 5, 10, 15 years. And the way that the benchmarks are changing will force many investors to do that. In that context, and that's also true on the fixed income side as well. With obviously I'm a little bit equity centric in my context, but it's true with Bond Connect, and it's also true of private investments as well, feeding into the stock market.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I think the last point I would make is that the innovation and technological change that you're seeing in China is also quite clearly profound, right? And you can get into delicate topics here, given the geopolitical backdrop, but it's very clear to me that you've got an enormous amount of innovation, you've got an enormous amount of investment in education, in R&D, and I think this is going to power an explosion of opportunity in China and risk in China over the course of the next decade, and that cuts across things like artificial intelligence, semiconductors. Even into things like smart education, new retail. The list goes on, and that innovation is going to have implications not just in China, because that innovation is going to spread around the world and change industries in the US, in Europe, in the developing world as well. So it makes Hong Kong an exciting place to be right now.
Certainly, yeah. Thanks for that, Damien.
Enthusiastic, Chris.
Yeah.
You've got questions out here on a Q&A. If you could.
So maybe I can just ask Matt to make a concluding remark, and then we can turn back to you, because clearly I think in wealth management, right? Many people on the Zoom call here are very active, self-directed investors also. Perhaps you can say a bit more about, taking all that information from Damien and everybody else in the marketplace. Should we do professional sort of like engagement with wealth managers? And what's the value of having professional management of family wealth and also individual wealth. And after that, we will turn it back to Karim.
Okay, maybe just allow me maybe 5 minutes to wrap this up. So maybe from that question is very broad, and I think that's why it explains why I'm involved with like 4 different setups. So JCube is our like the family office, and I think the question is there: what is a family office? Why to work with one? It's independent and it gives you access to all kind of solutions. So we are multi-platform. If you work with a wealth manager that has independent access, we can pick and decide who to work with. So we can work with fintech companies, with the standard banks that people like to work with, and so on. And we can cherry pick from where the client actually would like to have something for the client, all served from one hand. The second thing with DDI is making sense of all that data. So we have an independent view, we aggregate it, and we bring the rubber to the ground. So we help the client to make sense of all that overwhelming information out there. Number 3, the Imagineer part, right? So how to make sense of your life, how to plan for it. There, I think some people say the only certain things in life are death and taxes. So it depends, where do you stand in life and what do you want to achieve with your wealth? Once you have amassed a certain amount of wealth, it will become important to navigate. So what is the purpose of your investment? What would you like to make your money do for you? Is it like a retirement plan? Would you like to have opportunity to explore more, freedom to pursue? In my case, it's freedom to pursue. I like to explore. I like to be an entrepreneur, like to go into new ventures. And then last but not least, putting the rubber to the ground means if you work with professionals, we can also decide which parts we would like to help you to do directly, which parts maybe you can do better. So we have, for instance, Momentum DB Pro, where we have distilled a very interesting momentum data-driven investment strategy, and bring out an AMC early next year that actually is it's a single thing, but you can also put it together, but I don't dare to do other things as well. So find your strength. If let's say you're a very good investor, you maybe don't need certain help in certain areas, but on other helps, you can ask for the help. And then actually all bundling this together in a package that works for you and achieves the goals for you, that's what I want to help people with. A friend of mine, he also has a family office here in Switzerland, Stoffi Vögeli. He started to invest very well, and 2-3 years ago he outperformed the SPI by 20% one year. And suddenly he was all over the media. So he also has a family office, pretty decent sized, very well done. And suddenly all the people called him and wanted to invest alongside him. And then he said, oh, well, if you want to work with me, you have to have 5 million. Otherwise I cannot onboard you. And these phone calls kept coming in, right? And I think the tremendous opportunity we see now in this world is he later on just figured, oh, I don't even have to do a fund. I can do an AMC. I work with another third-party provider. We bundle this strategy into a product, and we offer it for anyone who wants to invest from $1,000. So it's very disruptive in a way, and he could actually, and he could monetize it and market it, and the clients are happy, and the people who originally could not even be his clients, they have now access to cutting-edge investment approach. So actually, this is the exciting part where we are living in at the moment. And so the Imagineer is like the inspiration part. We try to help people to be inspired, and then we can take you all the way up to JCube. And on every level, we have some solutions.
Great. So thank you, Matt, for sharing that family office approach. And thank you again, Damien, for sharing the institutional approach from global research. And I know that our time is almost up. So Karim, if you would like to take it back, the floor is yours.
Chris, thank you so much. Matthias and Damien, thank you so much. We've got a bunch of questions, but we don't have the time for it. But what I'd like to do this is we will formulate the questions, we'll get them together, we'll send it out to you, and hopefully you'll get a response back so that our audience can actually participate in your response to that. That's one, if you allow us to do that. Secondly, it's that it's obviously great that you have such a great following. We would like to have more conversations about that between you and us. And obviously, if you've got a product or connections with family offices that are creating products that our clients and our customers would like to explore, please let's make sure we do that in the future. Thank you again for both of you. Chris, thank you again so much for being here and introducing this to us. Thank you. Thank you.